The battlefield was silent now, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the heavy silence of death, of machines still burning, of smoke rising in the alien sky. Shadows of ruined ships stretched across the broken land, and the wind carried the bitter smell of fire. Among the wreckage walked a human soldier, his steps slow, his body tired, his uniform torn. His name was Daniel, a soldier who had lost his unit in the chaos of war. Every step felt heavier, his chest ached, and his eyes searched for life, but he found only destruction. He had no weapon left, only his will to move forward. In the distance, he saw an ancient ruin half buried in dust, its walls glowing faintly with strange symbols. Daniel moved toward it, thinking maybe it would offer shelter or water. But when he entered the ruin, he felt a strange energy in the air. The walls hummed, like the building itself was alive. And then, from the shadows, someone stepped forward, a tall figure, armored in dark metal, its face hidden under a mask. It was not human. Daniel could see that at once. The alien moved with calm, its steps soft, as if it had been waiting. Daniel froze, weak and unarmed. He expected an attack, but the alien did not raise a weapon. Instead, it held something in its hands, a sword, long and sharp, glowing with blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Daniel's eyes widened. The sword looked ancient, yet alive. Its edges hummed, and the light cut through the smoke of the ruin. The alien stepped closer and raised the weapon, not in threat, but as an offering. It spoke in a voice that echoed inside Daniel's head, not through ears but through thoughts. "This is yours now," the voice said, deep and calm. Daniel blinked, unsure if he understood. "Why me?" he whispered, his throat dry. The alien tilted its head as if the question had no meaning. "You are bound to it," the voice replied. "Take it, and your path will be written. Refuse it, and your fate will end here." Daniel stared at the sword, his heart pounding. It seemed impossible, yet something inside him urged him forward. His hand shook as he reached out, and when his fingers touched the hilt, a surge of energy shot through his body. He gasped, his vision flashing with images he did not understand. Battles, stars, voices not his own. The sword glowed brighter in his grip, as if it recognized him. Daniel felt both fear and power. The alien stranger released the weapon and stepped back into the shadows. "You will know," it said, "when the time comes." Before Daniel could speak, the alien vanished into the dark, leaving only silence and the humming sword. He was alone again, but now not unarmed. The sword felt heavy, but not like metal, more like it carried weight beyond matter. It seemed to pull at him, drawing his strength, but also filling him with something new. Daniel looked around, his senses sharp now. For the first time since the battle, he did not feel helpless. But then, from the corner of his eye, he saw movement, shadows slipping between broken walls, silent and watching. He tightened his grip on the glowing blade. The watchers were not friendly. He could feel it. The gift had made him a target, and whatever fate had bound him to this sword, it had already begun. The ruin shook slightly, as if the land itself reacted to the sword's power. Daniel stepped back into the smoke-filled night, the glowing blade in his hand. He did not know why the alien had chosen him. He did not know what the gift truly meant. But deep inside, he knew one thing. His life was no longer his own. The sword had tied him to something greater, something dangerous. And from the shadows, unseen eyes followed his every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. The silence of the battlefield was no longer empty. It was heavy with suspense. Something had begun, and Daniel was at the center of it now. The night stretched long, and Daniel walked with the sword glowing faintly in his grip. Each step echoed in the silence, the battlefield behind him, the unknown land ahead of him. The blade's hum was not only sound, it was a vibration inside his bones, as if it lived within him now. He stopped at the edge of a broken ridge, his breath uneven. The ruins below shimmered faintly with alien light. Strange towers half destroyed, yet still pulsing with energy. Daniel tightened his grip, the sword glowing brighter whenever he thought of danger. It was no normal weapon, he knew that much, but what was it? A gift, a trap, or a test? His fingers brushed across the blade, and his mind flooded with visions again. A battlefield that was not his, alien soldiers screaming, ships burning in the sky. And there was the same alien stranger, fighting with this very sword. Every strike sent waves of light cutting through enemies, and every enemy feared its glow. Daniel gasped and staggered, the vision fading. The sword seemed to drain his strength as it shared these memories. He fell to one knee, his breath sharp, sweat dripping down his face. It was alive, and it was showing him fragments of its history. When he stood again, his legs trembled, but he forced himself to keep moving. From the shadows, he felt it. The watchers were still there. Small eyes glimmered in the distance, too many to count. Whatever they were waiting for him to collapse, waiting for the moment he was weakest. Daniel did not want to wait for them. He raised the sword, and it responded, its glow spreading further. For the first time, he noticed strange markings appear on the ground near his feet. The same symbols he had seen in the ruin, now glowing faintly in the soil. The sword was not just a weapon. It was a key, unlocking things hidden. He swung it lightly, and the air itself seemed to bend around the edge. The hum grew louder, echoing across the broken land. And in that moment, the shadows in the distance hissed and pulled back, afraid. Daniel realized they were not only following him. They feared the weapon he carried. But fear did not mean safety. Fear often led to more violence. He continued forward, and the watchers followed still, moving slower, more careful. The gift had made him both stronger and hunted. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. Time felt strange under the weight of the blade. Finally, he found a cave at the edge of the ridge and stepped inside for rest. The sword's glow lit the walls, revealing carvings of battles, of humans and aliens standing side by side. His breath caught in his throat. These carvings were older than his people's arrival on this world. How could humans be carved here long before? He reached out to touch the wall, and again the sword flared. The carvings shifted, becoming alive in his vision. He saw the alien stranger again, but now not alone, a human beside him, carrying the same sword. A bond between species, a shared fight. The vision ended suddenly, leaving Daniel shaking. The sword was not only binding him to the alien, it was binding him to something far older. A promise, a destiny written before his birth. But why him? Why here? Why now? The cave rumbled, and from outside came the sound of claws scraping stone. The watchers had grown bold. Daniel raised the sword, its glow filling the cave like sunlight. Figures stepped into the entrance, small and twisted, their eyes glowing red, their bodies hunched and sharp. They hissed and circled, keeping their distance from the light. Daniel's heart raced. He had no shield, no armor, only this strange gift. He swung once, and the sword released a wave of blue light that struck the cave walls. The creatures screamed and scattered, afraid of its power. But as Daniel fell to his knees again, the sword's glow dimmed, and he felt weaker. Every strike was a cost. Every use pulled something from his life. He gritted his teeth and held it tighter. If the sword was feeding on him, then he had to decide, either master it or let it consume him. But one thing was clear now. The alien stranger had not given him a weapon. It had given him a bond. The sword's secret was not its power alone, but the connection it forced between lives. Daniel leaned against the wall, his breath heavy, the blade resting across his knees. The creatures lingered at the cave's edge, waiting for his weakness. The alien's voice echoed again in his mind, faint but steady. You will know when the time comes. Daniel closed his eyes, clutching the sword. He did not understand the gift yet, but he knew the truth. His fate was no longer his own. And outside, the watchers hissed in the night, waiting for him to rise. The gift had bound him to something greater, and that bond had only just begun. The night never truly ended on this world. only shifted between shades of darkness. Daniel stepped out of the cave at dawn's edge, the sky tinted in pale blue fire, the sword hanging heavy at his side. He had not slept. The watchers had kept their distance, but their whispers and hisses never faded. Every time his eyes closed, he saw visions of battles not his own, memories pressed into him by the sword. The weight of the gift was not only in his hands, it was in his mind. The air outside was sharper, filled with dust and static. Daniel's boots crunched across broken stone as he moved downhill, searching for water, food, anything that would keep him alive. But the land was empty, stripped bare by war. Only the sound of his breath and the hum of the blade followed him. Then came another sound. Engines. He froze and pressed himself against the rocks. From the horizon, enemy patrol ships descended, their lights cutting through the dark like knives. Alien soldiers marched out, their armor black, their eyes cold, and in their voices he heard fear disguised as command. "The relic is here," one of them hissed. "Find the bearer, bring the sword, alive if possible." Daniel's heart pounded. They knew. The alien stranger's gift had not been random. It had marked him, and now they were hunting him for it. He slipped deeper into the ruins, keeping low, his body screaming for rest, but his mind sharper than ever. Every corner carried danger. Every shadow whispered of pursuit. The sword pulsed faintly in his hand, guiding him, almost pulling him toward hidden paths. It was not only a weapon, it was a compass, but where was it leading him? The soldiers spread wide, scanning, their boots heavy against the cracked ground. Daniel ducked into a broken hall, its walls painted with fading murals of ancient wars. He crouched behind stone pillars, his breath shallow. One soldier passed close, its weapon humming, its eyes sweeping the shadows. Daniel's hand tightened on the hilt, but he knew. Every strike drained him. If he fought now, he would not last. Still, the sword seemed restless. It wanted to be used, its glow brighter as the enemy came near. Daniel whispered to it, "Not yet, not now." The glow dimmed, but the hum remained, alive, waiting. He moved again, quiet as he could, but the ruins betrayed him. A shard of stone cracked beneath his boot, echoing too loud. The soldier spun, weapon raised. Daniel reacted without thinking, swinging the sword once. A burst of light filled the hall, blinding blue. The soldier flew back, armor shattered, the sound of its scream twisting through the walls. But Daniel staggered, the energy ripping through him like fire. His knees buckled, and the world spun for a moment. Every time he used it, the sword reminded him. Power came with pain. Alarms rang the patrol had seen. Shouts echoed, boots pounded, lights swept toward him. Daniel pushed himself up, running deeper into the ruins, every muscle burning. The sword hummed louder, as if sensing his desperation, guiding him left, then right, down broken stairways. But the soldiers were fast, their voices closer. "Do not let him escape," one roared. "The relic must not leave these ruins." Daniel's breath tore in his throat. His body felt weaker, but his will hardened. He leapt across broken stone, slid beneath fallen walls, his grip never loosening on the weapon. It was both his curse and his shield. Without it, he would be dead already. With it, he was alive, but hunted by all. At last, he stumbled into a wide chamber. Its ceiling cracked open to the sky, lights spilling down. And in the center stood a massive gate of stone covered in glowing patterns. The sword in his hand pulsed violently, almost dragging him forward. Behind him, the soldiers stormed closer, their weapons raised, their shadows stretching long. Daniel lifted the sword, its glow matching the gate's light. Symbols lit up one by one. A hum filled the chamber. The stone began to shift, opening slowly, ancient gears grinding. The soldiers shouted, firing, blast striking stone near his feet. Daniel ducked, swinging the blade to shield himself, energy flashing like a wall between him and the enemy. The force pushed him back, but again his strength drained, his vision blurred. He stumbled to his knees, the sword almost too heavy to lift. Still, the gate opened wider, revealing a tunnel descending deep into the unknown. Daniel looked back once, saw the soldiers regrouping, their weapons glowing hotter. He had no choice. He gripped the sword with both hands, pulled himself to his feet, and ran into the darkness. The gate sealed behind him with a final echoing boom. Silence filled the tunnel. Only the hum of the sword remained. Daniel leaned against the wall, gasping, his body shaking. He was alive, but barely. The sword had saved him again, but at a cost. And now it had led him deeper, away from the battlefield, into the hidden veins of this alien world. The pursuit had only just begun, and Daniel knew, with each step, that his bond with the weapon would either destroy him or transform him forever. The tunnel was endless, carved deep beneath the alien ruins. Daniel's footsteps echoed softly, the hum of the sword his only companion. The walls glowed faintly with the same symbols he had seen before, ancient lines of light that pulsed whenever the sword drew near. It was as if the weapon was waking the stone itself, guiding him deeper into secrets buried for centuries. His body ached from exhaustion, each step heavier than the last. But the bond between him and the blade was growing stronger. He could feel it not only in his hand, but in his chest, like a heartbeat that was not his own. The weapon pulsed, and in return his veins tingled with its rhythm. It was no longer just something he carried. It was becoming part of him. He reached a chamber larger than any before. The ceiling stretched high, glowing symbols forming a map of stars. At the center stood a pedestal of stone, cracked but still alive with light. The sword hummed louder, pulling him forward. His grip tightened, uncertain if this was a path to truth or a trap waiting to close. When he placed the blade near the pedestal, vision struck him harder than ever. He fell to his knees as his mind was flooded with images. He saw the alien stranger again, but now clearly, tall, noble, with eyes burning like fire behind the mask. The stranger fought with the sword, not as a weapon, but as a bond. And beside him, a human stood, wielding the same light, fighting back to back against armies that seemed endless. Daniel gasped, his heart racing. The images shifted, showing victories, betrayals, sacrifices. He felt the stranger's pain, the human's courage, and the terrible cost of carrying the blade. Then he saw the final moment, the human falling, the stranger wounded, both connected by the same strike of the sword. The bond was clear now. When one carried it, both their fates were tied. Daniel's eyes snapped open, sweat dripping down his face, his body trembling. The sword glowed as if alive, as if breathing with him. And then, for the first time, he felt the alien's presence not in visions, but in his own mind. A voice, calm yet heavy, echoing inside his thoughts. "You see it now," the voice whispered. "You are bound. As I was bound, your life and mine are tied together." Daniel staggered to his feet, gripping the blade tighter. "Why me?" he whispered into the chamber, his voice shaking. "There are millions of soldiers. Why give it to me?" The voice replied slowly, filled with something between sorrow and certainty. "Because you were chosen by the blade itself. Not by me. The sword seeks a bearer, and once it chooses, the bond cannot be broken." Daniel's chest tightened, his breath uneven. He thought of his unit, his home, his life before this war. It all felt distant now, fading under the weight of this new destiny. The alien's presence lingered, watching, guiding, but never fully seen. Daniel realized he was not carrying a gift. He was carrying a chain. The chamber shook suddenly, dust falling from the ceiling. Daniel spun, blade raised. From the tunnel behind, echoes of pursuit returned. The enemy had not stopped. They had followed him even here, even into the depths. The sword pulsed violently, light spilling across the walls. Symbols on the stone shifted and moved, forming a shield of glowing patterns around the chamber. Daniel stood at the center, the blade humming with power. But with that power came the drain, his body shaking, his vision blurring. The alien voice spoke again, firm now. To wield the sword is to share its burden. Your strength is mine. My strength is yours. When you fall, so do I. Daniel's jaw tightened, his fear turning into grim resolve. If this bond was unbreakable, then he had no choice but to accept it. The enemy soldiers broke through the shield, their weapons glowing, their eyes locked on the blade. Daniel lifted the sword high, light pouring out like fire. The battle that followed was like nothing he had known. Every strike he made echoed with alien strength, every movement guided by something greater than himself. The soldiers fell back, terrified by the light. But each strike took more from him, draining his breath, his will, his very life. When it was over, the chamber was silent again. Daniel stood at the center, the sword dim in his hands, his body trembling as if he had run for days. The alien's presence was still there, calm but heavy. You understand now, it said. There is no turning back. The bond is sealed. Daniel leaned against the pedestal, his breath ragged, his heart heavy. The gift was no gift at all. It was a fate he could not escape. And somewhere in the shadows of his mind, the alien stranger's fire still burned, tied to him now until the end. The chamber's silence lingered, broken only by Daniel's shallow breathing. The sword rested across his knees, its glow faint now, but its hum still alive. He had fought, survived, and learned the truth of the bond, yet none of it felt like victory. It felt like a chain tightening around his life, pulling him deeper into something he could not escape. For days he wandered the tunnels, guided only by the sword's pull. The alien's presence flickered in his mind, sometimes strong, sometimes silent. It was not comfort. It was a reminder that he was never alone, not even inside his own thoughts. When he finally reached the surface again, the world above looked different. The ruins stretched wider, the smoke still lingered, but now he saw more patrols, more soldiers, all searching. They were hunting him without pause. And yet, not only aliens sought him now. From the shadows of the broken city, humans appeared, soldiers like him, battered but alive. When they saw him, their eyes widened at the sight of the glowing sword. Their voices filled with both awe and fear. You found it, one whispered. The relic, the weapon of legends, it's real. Daniel's heart lifted for a moment. He had thought he was alone, but now there were others, his own kind, survivors of the war. They led him to a hidden camp within the ruins, where fires burned low and weary faces turned to stare. Dozens of soldiers, ragged, hungry, but alive. They looked at him not as a man, but as something more, as if the sword made him larger than life. For the first time, Daniel felt hope. He shared food with them, listened to their stories. They spoke of commanders, of orders to retreat, of fear that humanity might be losing this war. And when they asked about the sword, Daniel spoke carefully, hiding the truth of the bond. He only said it was powerful, dangerous, and not fully his. But the camp's commander, a stern man with scars across his face, saw more than the others. He pulled Daniel aside, his eyes sharp and cold. You cannot carry that weapon alone, the commander said. It belongs to humanity, to our fight, not to you. Daniel gripped the hilt tighter, his jaw tense. It chose me, he replied softly. The commander's expression darkened. No weapon chooses, only men do, and I will have it in my hands before this night is over. The words stung more than enemy fire. Daniel realized then, the greatest threat might not be the aliens outside. It might be the fear and greed of his own people. The commander spread whispers through the camp, that Daniel was cursed, that the sword would bring ruin to them all. And by nightfall, soldiers who had looked at him with hope now stared with suspicion. The alien's voice stirred faintly in his mind. Do you see now? Humans are no different. Fear makes traitors of allies. Daniel wanted to deny it, but the proof was in every face around the fire. When he tried to sleep, he felt eyes on him, watching, waiting. The bond pulsed in his chest, warning him that betrayal was near. And it came swiftly, At dawn, he awoke to the sound of boots and guns. The commander stood over him, soldiers at his side. "Give me the relic," the commander ordered, his hand outstretched, "or I will take it from your corpse." Daniel rose slowly, the sword in his grip glowing faintly. His eyes scanned the faces of men he once called brothers. But none stepped forward, none defended him. They wanted the weapon, not the man. "I cannot," Daniel said, his voice steady despite the fear. "The sword is bound. It will not obey you. It will not belong to anyone else." The commander sneered. "Then I will cut it from your dead hands." He raised his weapon, the soldiers around him following. The camp that had felt like safety only hours ago had turned into a cage. The alien's presence surged through Daniel's mind, urging him to act. The sword pulsed with light, brighter with each heartbeat. He stepped back, lifting the blade. "I do not want to fight you," he warned. "But if you force me, I will." The tension broke like glass. Gunfire roared. Shouts filled the camp. Chaos erupted. Daniel moved with the sword's guidance, strikes of light scattering men who had once been his allies. The bond burned inside him, power and pain twisting together. Every attack was survival, every swing toward his strength. When it ended, silence returned, but it was the silence of betrayal. The commander lay fallen, the camp scattered, soldiers fleeing into the ruins. Daniel stood alone once more, surrounded by ash and fire. His chest heaved, his hands shook, the sword dim once again, and the alien's voice whispered coldly, "Now you see, the blade does not bring unity, it brings division. The bond is not a gift, it is a curse, and it will consume all who touch it." Daniel's eyes burned with anger and grief. The sword had cost him his people, his trust, and now his home among his own kind. He tightened his grip, knowing the road ahead would hold only more enemies. Human or alien, it did not matter anymore. All of them would come for the blade, and he would stand alone, bound forever to its fate. The ruins burned behind him, the smoke of betrayal rising into the endless sky. Daniel walked alone once more, his steps heavy, the sword dragging faintly at his side. He had lost his brothers, not to the aliens, but to their fear and greed. The gift that had given him hope had now carved him apart from his own people. Yet there was no time for grief, no time to rest. The pursuit had not ended. The aliens still searched, their ships circling the skies, their patrols sweeping every ruin. And Daniel knew they would never stop, not until the blade was back in their grasp. The bond pulled him forward, the alien presence in his mind sharper now, louder. It whispered warnings, urged him to keep moving, to not look back. He stumbled through deserts of glass and stone. The heat pressed against him like fire, his throat dry, his body aching. But the sword guided him, humming whenever danger drew near. At night, its glow kept the shadows away, though every time he raised it, his strength drained faster. The weapon fed on him, but he also fed on it. Without the bond, he would be dead already. On the third day, they found him. Black ships descended from the clouds, their engines screaming. Dozens of alien soldiers spilled out, armored and armed, their weapons glowing red. Daniel tried to run, but the ground beneath him shook. Energy nets spread across the desert, trapping him in light, binding his limbs. He struggled, but his body was too weak. The sword glowed faintly, resisting the trap, but even its power could not free him now. He was dragged into chains, hauled into one of their ships. Darkness closed around him as the door sealed shut. When he woke, he was inside a massive chamber of metal and fire. The air was thick with smoke, the walls alive with machinery. And standing before him was the alien stranger. No longer a shadow, no longer a memory, but real, solid, alive. Daniel's chest tightened. "You," he whispered. The alien's masked face tilted, its voice echoing in his mind. "The bond has brought you here, as it was always meant to." Before Daniel could reply, the guards forced him forward, chains biting into his wrists. The stranger raised a hand, silencing them with a single command. "This one is mine," the alien declared. The soldiers hesitated, then obeyed, leaving Daniel and the stranger alone. The chamber shook suddenly, alarms blaring. Through the walls, Daniel heard the roar of battle, explosions shaking the ship. The stranger turned, its voice colder now. "The trial begins. Only fire will decide if you are worthy of the bond." The chains fell away. The sword floated back into Daniel's hands, glowing brighter than ever. He gasped, the energy surging into him like a storm. The alien stepped forward, raising its own blade, a twin to Daniel's weapon, but older, darker, cracked with scars of countless battles. "You will fight beside me," the stranger said. "If you fail, we both die. If you endure, the bond will be complete." The walls split open as enemy forces poured into the chamber. Armored giants, their weapons blazing, their voices a chorus of rage. Daniel raised the sword, his body trembling but his spirit unbroken. The alien moved beside him, their blades glowing in unison. The battle was chaos. Every strike of Daniel's sword sent waves of light crashing against the enemy. Every movement of the stranger flowed with his, as if they were one mind, one body. The bond guided them, made them faster, stronger, sharper. But it also tied their pain. When the alien was struck, Daniel felt the wound burn across his own chest. When Daniel faltered, the alien staggered too. Their enemies came without end, wave after wave. The chamber roared with fire and screams. Daniel's arms ached, his breath tore in his lungs, but he fought on, because now he was no longer alone. Hours passed like minutes, minutes passed like fire. At last, the final enemy fell, torn apart by the twin blades of light. Silence returned, broken only by their ragged breaths. Daniel dropped to his knees, the sword dimming, his body nearly broken. The alien fell beside him, its armor cracked, its mask shattered. Daniel looked into its eyes for the first time, not the cold fire of a stranger, but the weary gaze of someone bound to him by more than choice. The alien whispered, its voice faint but steady. "The bond is sealed. Your strength is mine. My fate is yours." The chamber burned around them, the ship groaning under the weight of battle. Daniel tightened his grip on the sword, his chest heavy but his resolve stronger. The trial of fire was over, but the war was not. And now, their lives were tied together, until victory or until death. The ship groaned like a dying beast, fire tearing through its hulls. Daniel staggered to his feet, the sword glowing faintly in his hand. Beside him, the alien stranger rose, its mask broken, its face marked by scars of countless wars. For the first time, Daniel saw its eyes clearly, tired, fierce, but also human in their sorrow. The bond between them pulsed stronger now. Every heartbeat shared, every breath echoed. They had survived the trial of fire, but the battle was not over. The ship shook again as explosions ripped through the metal walls. Above them, the sky rumbled, fleets clashing in war, lights of destruction painting the heavens. "We must move," the alien said, its voice heavy in Daniel's mind. "The enemy will not stop. They know the bond is complete. They will destroy the both of us before they let the sword remain in human hands." Daniel nodded, his body weak, but his resolve iron. He followed the stranger through burning corridors, the blade guiding their way. Every turn brought enemies, soldiers desperate to end them. Together they fought, every strike in perfect unison, every movement shared. When Daniel swung, the aliens struck too, their blades crossing in arcs of light that split the darkness. But with every victory came a price. The bond that gave them strength also tore them down. When the alien bled, Daniel's chest burned. When Daniel faltered, the alien stumbled. They were no longer two, they were one, and that unity was both power and doom. At last they reached the heart of the ship, a vast chamber where the core burned like a star. The walls shook violently, alarms screaming, the ship moments from collapse. In the center stood the enemy commander, massive and armored, its weapon a spear of molten fire. Its voice thundered through the chamber. You cannot escape. The relic will die with you, and your bond will be your prison. Daniel gripped the sword tighter. The alien raised its own scar blade. They stepped forward together, not as strangers, but as one fate. The battle was like nothing before. The commander's strength shook the chamber, every strike of its spear tearing stone and steel apart. Daniel and the alien moved in rhythm, blades flashing, sparks and light filling the air. The fight dragged on, every strike heavier, every wound deeper. Daniel felt the bond burning through him, draining what little strength he had left. The alien too faltered, blood dripping, its breath sharp. But still they fought, for retreat was no longer possible. At the final moment, the commander lunged, its spear aimed for Daniel's heart. The alien stepped forward, intercepting the strike, the bond screaming in Daniel's chest. Pain tore through him as if the spear had pierced them both. But in that moment, Daniel's blade flared brighter than ever before. With one desperate cry, he drove it forward, the light cutting through armor, flesh, and fire. The commander fell. The chamber shook, the core erupted in flames. Daniel collapsed. The sword shattered in his hands, its pieces glowing before fading into ash. The alien lay beside him, its eyes dim but still fixed on Daniel's face. The bond remains, it whispered weakly. Even without the blade, we are tied. Until the end. Daniel's vision blurred, the fire of the ship closing around them. He thought of his unit, of his people, of the life he once had. It all seemed so distant now, replaced by this one truth. His fate was no longer his alone. The stranger had given him more than a weapon. It had given him a destiny that could not be broken. With the last of his strength, Daniel dragged the alien toward an escape hatch. The flames roared, the ship crumbled, but they escaped into the night sky, falling through fire and smoke, crashing into the ruins below. When the dust cleared, Daniel lay broken, the alien beside him, their hands gripping each other's arms. The sword was gone, but the bond pulsed still, unseen but unbroken. Daniel closed his eyes, his breath shallow, his voice trembling. "We survived," he whispered. "For now," the alien replied, its voice faint but steady. And in that moment, Daniel understood. Their lives were sealed together, not by choice but by fate. The gift had never been a weapon. It had been a chain that tied two lives, two species, into one destiny. And as the war thundered across the stars above, Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The sword had bound their fates forever, and nothing could ever set them free.